Solving absolute value inequalities, part 3. So here we have 6 minus the absolute value of 4h minus 4 is less than 2. Well, the first thing we'd want to do is change this subtraction to addition of the opposite. So we would write 6 plus negative absolute value of 4h minus 4 is less than 2. And we want to remember that the negative on the outside of the absolute value is really multiplication by negative 1. Now we want to isolate the absolute value. So the first thing we're going to need to do is subtract 6 from both sides. 6 minus 6 cancels, and we have negative 1 times the absolute value of 4h minus 4 is less than, and then 2 minus 6 is negative 4. But we haven't quite yet isolated the absolute value yet. We still have to get rid of the multiplication of negative 1. So we divide by negative 1. Now whenever we divide by a negative, we need to flip that inequality sign. So these are going to cancel, and we have the absolute value of 4h minus 4. Flip that absolute value, or the inequality sign, and then negative 4 divided by negative 1 will give us positive 4. Now our absolute value is isolated, and remember we're asking ourselves, can we think of a non-negative number, because that's what an absolute value is, a non-negative number which is greater than 4? Well, 5, 6, 7, 8, those are all greater than 4, so this will have a lot of solutions. So we write out our first inequality by dropping the absolute value signs. 4h minus 4 is greater than 4. And then our second one is 4h minus 4. We flip our inequality, so it goes from greater than to less than, and then we make the 4 negative. So we get negative 4. Now we'll go ahead and work through these. So the first thing I need to do is change my subtraction to addition to the opposite. To get rid of a negative 4, I will add 4 to both sides. That gives me 4h. Negative 4 plus 4 cancels, is greater than 4 plus 4 is 8. And then we're going to get rid of the multiplication of 4 by dividing by 4 on both sides. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so that cancels, leaving with just 1h, is greater than 8 divided by 4 is 2. So I've got my first one, and it's h is greater than 2. For number 2, I would still change my minus 4 to plus negative 4. To get rid of the negative 4, I still need to add 4 to both sides. That gives me 4h. Negative 4 plus 4 cancels, is less than negative 4 plus 4 is 0. To get rid of the multiplication by 4, we divide by 4 on both sides. And that gives me h is less than 0 divided by 4 is 0. And then we go ahead and graph these. Here's 0, here's 2. My first one says h is greater than 2. Which means that the arrow goes to the right. And since it's strictly greater, we use a parenthesis. My second one says h is less than 0. So we start at 0 and go to the left. And then once again, since h is strictly less than 0, we use a parenthesis. Now remember, if we want to bridge this gap here, we're going to have to use a union. So my first interval goes from negative infinity up to 0. We want to bridge that gap with a union, and then we continue from 2 to infinity. And there's our solution.